I'll soon be starting up a new series of videos called Game Room Treasures. These episodes will go over some of the things I own and my experience with them. I plan to start with the Japanese Sega Master System, but before we get into all of that, I wanted to do a short explanation of how I got to where I am with my game collecting. There have been some huge changes over the years, and I thought it'd be fun to take a trip down memory lane. While I had been a gamer for most of my life at that point, it all really started for me in the summer of 1999. Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace had just hit theaters, and Street Fighter III Third Strike was fresh at your local arcade. At 24 years old, I finally had a job making some real money, the kind of money that would have allowed me to buy pretty much anything I wanted in the world of gaming. Before I go any further, let's rewind a bit. It's important to understand what a big change this was. I had grown up in a poor household where my mother worked hard to give me what little I had, and from there, I had to rely on the goodwill of friends to play pretty much everything else. Even once I started my very first job in 1989, everything had to be brokered on a give-and-take system. Even with the buying power to explore notable Japanese releases, my meager cash flow meant everything would come with the liquidation of something previously obtained. When I got a Super Graphics, I played it a while, and then it had to be given up to get the next item. When I imported a game early, I'd need to sell it back to the import shop in order to get something else. This continued for years. While I always had games to play, my collection never really amounted to more than a dozen software titles or the 2 or 3 consoles to play them on. I didn't want to give anything up, but if I wanted to continue to play new releases, it was an unfortunate necessity. Let's go ahead and jump back to 1999 and that new job. Things were about to change in a big way. In addition to more disposable income, I had also discovered the joys of eBay, where you could pretty much find anything your heart desired. All those Japanese Saturn games I had wanted to try but couldn't afford could finally be owned. All those beloved Genesis and Sega CD games I had loved back in the day could be on my shelf again. And all those Master System games I had read about on the internet could be explored to their fullest extent. It was a brand new day in gaming for me, and I was excited to get started. And hot damn did I buy everything in sight. Between eBay, yard sales, flea markets, and the mom and pop shops, I amassed a huge collection in no time. I was like a kid in a candy shop. I wanted it all. Good, bad, terrible, it didn't matter. If it was related to video games, I wanted it. It didn't have to be made by Sega or for one of their consoles to get my attention. I went after the CDI, the Jaguar, hell, even the Virtual Boy was on my list of must-buys. The years passed and the collection grew. I went from dozens of games to a few thousand, from 2 or 3 consoles to many, many more. I bought and I bought and I bought and I bought. It became an obsession. It became an addiction. The shelves in my game room swelled to nearly unmanageable levels. After 9 years of unmitigated buying, I was absolutely swimming in a treasure trove of gamedom. But I'm sad to say the journey had not been the fairy tale I had wanted it to be. In 2008, after nearly a decade of unrestricted buying, I began to feel the burden of owning so much and playing so little. The decade-long stupor I had been in had concealed an ugly truth. Gaming became less about actually playing and much more about putting stuff on my shelves. In fact, not only was I playing less, but the vast majority of the stuff I bought barely got more than a testing to the title screen before hitting the shelf and never being touched again. While I owned a great many excellent titles, I also bought games en masse that I genuinely knew with absolute certainty I'd never play. The excitement of unrestricted buying and showing off had completely replaced the reason I began collecting in the first place. It wasn't about scoring stuff I really wanted to play anymore, and had become all about how it looked in my game room. At some point during that stretch, I had stopped being a gamer and had become someone that only collected video games. I knew deep down inside this was my fault. I craved the ownership and the bragging rights that came with it. I reveled in the addiction of being surrounded by heaps of games and hardware. What started as a legitimate and earnest attempt to recapture the magic of my youth was ultimately corrupted by a materialism that had nothing to do with why I started. Years earlier, I had laughed and made fun of fools that paid huge sums of cash for things like toys, comic books, and baseball cards. Yet here I was, a creature born of the same impulses. The rush I got from showing off my collection to friends, family, and strangers on the internet was as potent as any addiction I had ever experienced. I loved video games, and this was my way to prove that my opinion mattered, that my view was born of true experience. But little of that was true. 3/4 of the stuff in my game room had been played very little or not at all. The only thing separating me from anyone else was that I was willing to spend huge sums of money on gaming, and they weren't. As the melancholy of these realizations and truths began to wash over me, I vowed to right the ship. It's true I had gone off course and become something I had despised, but it wasn't too late to make things right. 2008 would become the year of gaming, and I was going to start playing what I owned, instead of adding more to the shelf. In fact, I had actually began to sell off many of the things I knew I had purchased just for the sake of. I dumped the CDI and Jaguar. I got rid of the Genesis and Sega CD games I knew I'd never enjoy. I focused on keeping and playing the stuff I had loved or wanted so badly when I was younger and much less fortunate. It took a few years to sort it all out, but I eventually curated a collection of games and systems that I not only played regularly, but was genuinely proud to say I owned. I didn't care how anyone felt about my opinion anymore, and my game room stopped being about bragging rights and some bullshit proof that I knew what I was talking about, and simply became a place I played my games. I was a retro gamer once more, and I'd never again forget why I love this hobby so much. Before I let you go, I want you to know this story isn't meant to be a cautionary tale or used to judge or belittle anyone. What you spend your money on and why is your own business. This episode is about my journey and how I felt on a very personal level while I was collecting. It's how I wanted my experience to play out. If you take anything away from this video, I want it to be that staying true to yourself can sometimes be a hard thing to do. It's easy to go off course and let things spiral into something you never meant it to become. You can apply that thinking to just about anything, really. Too much of a good thing can ultimately become quite unappealing. In regards to gaming, I had become much more concerned with bragging rights and satisfying my need to fill my shelves instead of actually playing and enjoying the stuff I owned. In fact, it took a decade's journey before I found out the more I actually played the games I own, the less time I had to worry about buying more. It's a philosophy I live by today, and for me, it's working out just fine. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.